Lyra Vance stood at attention on the metallic floor of the Epsilon Prime training hall, her boots clicking sharply against the polished panels. Around her, rows of cadets, both human and alien, waited nervously for the lesson to begin. The hall was enormous, its ceiling stretching hundreds of feet above, dotted with suspended holographic projectors that displayed tactical scenarios in glowing blue light. Human technology, refined through centuries of adaptation and survival, intertwined with alien designs that seemed almost organic, as if the station itself was alive. Lyra had walked these floors countless times, yet today she felt a thrill that bordered on fear. She knew the instructor on duty today had a reputation that made even the most seasoned cadets flinch. Instructor Corin Vex entered the room with the slow, deliberate grace of someone used to command. He was tall, broader than most of the alien species here, and every movement radiated authority. His mask was sleek and polished, covering the entire face, hiding his expressions. Cadets often whispered that not even his peers had seen what lay beneath. Corin's silence was as much a weapon as the pulse rifles that hung from the walls. "Line up," he said, his voice deep and resonant, though it carried no warmth. Cadets froze, their training instincts kicking in. Lyra moved forward, her chest tight but her head held high. She was not one to bend her pride, even in the presence of a figure as imposing as Corin Vex. The lesson began with a holographic battle scenario projected in the center of the hall. Alien forces swarmed a simulated outpost on a distant planet, their movements precise and deadly. Corin explained the strategy with cold efficiency, outlining how each unit should act. Most cadets nodded silently, absorbing every detail, but Lyra noticed something different. There was a flaw in his plan, a single vulnerability that could easily be exploited by a clever enemy. She hesitated for only a heartbeat before speaking. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room, "I believe that maneuver will leave the flank exposed." The enemy could take the outpost without any resistance. The hall fell silent. Cadets shifted uneasily. No one had ever spoken against Corin's tactics in this way. To question him was almost unthinkable. Corin's hand shot out faster than anyone could react. His palm struck Lyra across the cheek with a sharp, resounding slap. Pain exploded in her skin, a red mark blooming instantly, but more than that, her pride flared. She had expected fear, perhaps even retaliation, but anger surged stronger than fear. Lyra's body moved before her mind even processed it. Years on Earth's harsh outer colonies had honed her reflexes. Years of running from collapsing habitats, scavenging and fighting for survival, had taught her the speed and precision her body could achieve. She stepped forward and swung her fist toward the edge of Corin's mask. The impact cracked the polished surface with a sharp snap, sending shards of reinforced polymer skittering across the floor. For the first time, the cadets saw the face behind the mask. Scars lined Corin's pale alien skin, each one a story of battles fought and victories won. His eyes, golden and intense, widened in shock. Even he, seasoned and experienced, had not expected such audacity from a human cadet. The hall remained frozen. Corin's usual calm, intimidating presence faltered. Lyra's chest heaved, her hand trembling slightly from the force she had exerted. She did not step back, though. She held his gaze, her blue eyes unwavering. There was no fear, only a quiet assertion she would not be broken. The silence broke with a low, cautious voice. "Cadet Vance," Corin said, his tone measured but carrying a hint of disbelief. "Step forward." Lyra obeyed, each movement deliberate, showing the poise that had become her trademark. She expected a harsh reprimand, perhaps even expulsion, but Corin merely studied her. His eyes scanned her from head to toe, taking in her posture, the fire in her gaze, and the undeniable confidence that radiated from her every movement. "You are reckless," he said finally, his voice a low rumble. "But you are also remarkable. Most humans would have crumbled under my hand. You did not." Lyra swallowed, unsure if the words were praise or warning. She remained silent, letting him continue. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to a spot at the center of the hall. Lyra obeyed, her mind racing. She felt the weight of every cadet's gaze. Some eyes shone with admiration, others were clouded with fear. She had broken a tradition, challenged authority, and yet survived unscathed. That alone was a statement. Corin removed the rest of his mask, revealing more of his scarred face. "This mask," he said, running a scarred hand along the damaged surface, "is not just protection. It is power, it is fear, and you have destroyed it in seconds. His gaze locked with hers. Why? Lyra's voice was calm but firm, because fear should not guide strategy, intelligence and courage should. The enemy does not respect masks or authority, they respect action and the ability to survive. There was a pause. Corrin's golden eyes searched hers, perhaps looking for a trace of deceit or arrogance, but found none. For the first time, he seemed to reconsider everything he thought he knew about humans. Very well, he said finally, replacing the broken mask with the one resting on his belt. Tomorrow, you will lead the tactical simulation, alone. Whispers erupted across the hall. Cadets exchanged looks, some of awe, some of disbelief. Leading a simulation alone was a punishment no cadet wanted, especially under Corrin Vex. And yet, in that moment, Lyra felt a surge of exhilaration. She had been tested in ways she had not anticipated, and she had emerged not only unbroken but stronger. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Lyra replayed the scenario in her mind, analyzing every possible move the enemy could make. She walked through corridors filled with holographic maps and training drones, each step reinforcing her understanding that humans were adaptable in ways the galaxy had yet to comprehend fully. That evening, when the training hall had emptied, Lyra remained behind. She touched the shattered mask edge, running her fingers over the cool fragments. She knew she had crossed a line, but it was not fear that drove her, it was necessity. Humanity had survived countless disasters on barren planets, in collapsed cities, in orbiting colonies where nothing lived but hunger, water, and cold steel. And here, in the polished halls of Epsilon Prime, she was proving once again that humans could face anything, even an alien instructor whose reputation was legendary. As the stars twinkled beyond the massive observation windows, Lyra thought about the coming simulation. She was alone against an advanced alien strategy system designed to overwhelm cadets, to crush them under impossible odds. Most would falter, most would fail. But she had something the aliens often underestimated: human ingenuity, instinct, and an unyielding spirit. Night fell over the station, and the corridors were quiet except for the distant hum of power conduits and life support systems. Lyra slept fitfully, dreaming of battles that were both real and imagined, simulations of strategies that stretched the limits of her mind. In every scenario, she saw herself succeeding, not through brute force alone, but through cleverness, courage, and an instinct for survival that no alien could predict. By the time morning came, Lyra felt ready. She donned her uniform with precision, fastening each strap and checking her equipment. Every movement was deliberate. Every step carried the weight of experience, of training, and of survival. As she stepped into the simulation chamber, she noticed the other cadets watching, their expressions a mix of envy and respect. Corrin Vex stood at the observation deck above, his mask in hand, watching her with keen interest. The crack in his mask was still visible, a reminder of human audacity. For the first time, he felt uncertain. Could a single human cadet truly stand against the simulations he had designed to break even the strongest alien minds? Lyra took her position. She closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. Every skill, every lesson learned on Earth and during her training came together in that moment. She opened her eyes and faced the holographic battlefield. The enemy units appeared, moving with ruthless precision, calculating every angle. But Lyra's mind was faster. She moved with a speed and intuition that no simulation could anticipate. As she issued commands and maneuvered her virtual squad, she realized that the real lesson had begun, not just for her, but for everyone watching. Humans were underestimated, yes, but they were also unpredictable. And unpredictability in the right hands was a weapon more powerful than any blaster or shield. By the time the first wave of holographic enemies fell, it was clear to all: Lyra Vance was no ordinary cadet. And Corrin Vex, the unflinching instructor, had just encountered a force he could not ignore. The stage was set for battles far greater than simulations, battles that would test the limits of both human courage and alien expectation. Lyra's heart beat steadily as she prepared for the next wave, knowing that every action, every decision would be a testament to human resilience. And for the first time, she felt that the galaxy was truly ready to see what humans could do when pushed beyond their limits. The day after Lyra had broken Corrin Vex's mask, the training hall buzzed with whispers. Cadets who had once sneered at humans now looked at her with a mixture of awe and caution. Her act of defiance had not just shattered a mask, it had shattered the illusion of human weakness that had lingered in the academy for decades. Lyra did not celebrate. She walked the corridors with her head high, knowing that what came next would be far more dangerous than a cracked mask or a hall full of gawking cadets. Corin waited for her in the central simulation chamber. The cracked edge of his mask reflected the pale light, a constant reminder of human audacity. Today, he would watch her lead a tactical exercise alone, an unprecedented challenge. Cadets were not normally allowed to command simulations without supervision, especially not against scenarios designed to crush even the most advanced alien minds. "Cadet Vance," Corin said, his voice calm but firm. "This simulation will test not just skill, but instinct. You are alone. If you fail, the consequences are yours. The enemy does not forgive hesitation." Lyra nodded. "Understood, sir." Her voice carried no fear, only determination. In her mind, she replayed every lesson she had ever learned. Strategy, survival, improvisation, and the human instinct to fight back when cornered. The simulation activated with a sudden rush of light. The holographic battlefield expanded across the floor, displaying a desolate planet under siege. Alien forces moved in calculated patterns, more advanced than anything she had seen. The system was designed to overwhelm drones, automated defenses, and enemy squads that adapted to every move she made. Lyra took a deep breath. She focused not on fear, but on opportunity. Humans were underestimated because of their unpredictability, their ability to improvise when logic seemed impossible. She would turn that underestimation into an advantage. "Move forward," she commanded to her virtual squad. Her voice was confident, steady. Cadets in the observation gallery held their breath, waiting for failure, expecting the simulation to crush her like it had with countless others. But Lyra's team moved with speed and precision. She dodged automated turrets, lured enemy drones into traps, and exploited gaps in the holographic enemy lines that the system itself had not accounted for. Every movement was calculated, yet fluid, like a dance between chaos and control. Corin leaned over the railing, watching intently. His golden eyes narrowed. This human cadet was not simply surviving, she was rewriting the rules of the simulation. His training modules had never accounted for intuition combined with raw courage. And in that moment, he realized something profound. Humans were more than flesh and instinct. They were a force that could defy prediction, a species that could turn impossibility into victory. Lyra pressed on, guiding her squad through the maze of enemy lines. Each step was a test, each decision a gamble. Holographic drones swarmed from every direction, but she anticipated their movements. She used feints, misdirections, and unexpected maneuvers, exploiting weaknesses that even the system had been designed to hide. As the first wave of enemies fell, a cheer erupted from a corner of the observation deck. Cadets who had doubted her were now captivated. She had done what no one thought possible. She had survived, and more importantly, she had dominated. Corin's voice cut through the noise. "Impressive, but the challenge has only begun." The next wave arrived, faster, more aggressive. The holographic enemy adapted, predicting some of her earlier strategies. The room tensed. Cadets leaned forward, gripping the edges of the observation railing. For the first time, Lyra felt the familiar rush of danger she had known all her life on the rugged colonies of Earth. Survival was never guaranteed, and yet it was what drove her forward. She analyzed patterns quickly. The enemy anticipated direct attacks, but struggled with unpredictability. Lyra shifted tactics. She sent small decoy units on one path while flanking with the main force from a completely unexpected direction. The enemy drones scrambled to adjust, their programming unable to match the ingenuity of a human mind. In the gallery, murmurs grew louder. "She's insane or brilliant," another cadet whispered, awe in his voice. Lyra's heartbeat remained steady. Every move she made was calculated, yet instinctive. Her fingers traced controls with practiced ease, issuing commands to virtual squads with a precision that was almost artistic. Drones that had seemed impossible to destroy fell one by one under her strategy. The simulation pulsed and flickered, unable to fully adapt to her improvisation. Corin's lips pressed into a thin line. He had seen thousands of cadets attempt this, and most had failed spectacularly. But Lyra was different. She didn't just follow rules, she created new ones in real time. Her mind worked faster than any algorithm, faster than any prediction the simulation could make. Hours passed, or at least it felt that way. Lyra moved through wave after wave, refining her strategy, learning from every failed maneuver and every successful strike. She adapted not only to the simulation but to herself, discovering strengths she had never consciously known. Each success strengthened her confidence. Each narrow escape sharpened her instincts. Finally, the last wave appeared, a massive formation of drones and enemy units designed to overwhelm. Even experienced cadets froze at the sight. The simulation was meant to be unbeatable, a final test that crushed the pride of any who attempted it. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Fear was absent. Only focus remained. She studied the formation, noting subtle patterns. Even in the enemy's overwhelming coordination, there were flaws, tiny, almost imperceptible gaps. She exploited them with lightning speed, sending her units in a synchronized strike that tore through the holographic enemies with surgical precision. The final wave fell. The room erupted in astonished applause. Cadets stared in disbelief. Corin Vex's jaw tightened as he stepped closer, his usual composure faltering. He had witnessed something he could not ignore. A human cadet had conquered the unconquerable. Lyra exhaled slowly, her body tense but triumphant. She had not only survived the simulation, she had rewritten it, proving that human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability could overcome what alien technology considered insurmountable. Corin finally spoke, his voice carrying across the hall. "Cadet Vance, you have exceeded every expectation, not because you followed instructions, but because you acted beyond them. Humans are not predictable. You have proven that in ways I never anticipated." Lyra's chest swelled with pride. She had not sought praise, she had sought survival and excellence. And in doing so, she had shown the Academy, and perhaps the galaxy, that humans were more than they appeared. In the following days, Lyra's actions were discussed endlessly. Cadets who had doubted humans now studied her tactics, hoping to understand her thought process. Alien instructors, once dismissive of human cadets, now approached her with a mixture of respect and caution. Even Corin Vex, though still stern and exacting, found himself observing her more closely than any other cadet. Lyra did not let this attention go to her head. She continued to train, to learn, and to push herself. The simulation was only the beginning. She understood that the galaxy was vast, and the challenges ahead were far greater than a holographic battlefield. Survival would demand more than skill. It would demand courage, adaptability, and the relentless spirit that defined humanity. One evening after training, Lyra walked through the observation corridors of Epsilon Prime, gazing out at the stars. The void of space stretched endlessly, filled with dangers unknown. Alien fleets moved silently in distant orbits, and the stations of other species glimmered like jewels in the darkness. She knew the galaxy underestimated humans. They assumed fragility, hesitation, and weakness. But Lyra had learned something the aliens could not calculate. Unpredictability, courage, and ingenuity were weapons just as lethal as plasma rifles or shield generators, and humans wielded them naturally. Corin approached her quietly, placing the repaired mask on a nearby console. "You have changed something here," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "Not just in the simulations, but in the minds of everyone who witnessed it. I underestimated humans, Cadet Vance. I will not make that mistake again." Lyra nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She had not sought to prove anything to Corin personally, but her actions had consequences far beyond herself. Every cadet watching, every instructor observing, would now see that humans were capable of feats the galaxy often ignored or dismissed. The next week brought new challenges. Lyra was assigned to lead joint training exercises with alien cadets, a task designed to test her ability to command and coordinate with other species. Many of these exercises were impossible to win using conventional tactics. Most cadets failed, unable to adjust to the speed and cunning of combined alien forces. Lyra thrived. She learned to communicate quickly and clearly, to adapt to the strengths and weaknesses of her team, and to exploit enemy patterns in real time. Her strategies were unconventional, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. She won battles that were supposed to be lost. Word of her victories spread beyond the Academy. Commanders in distant sectors began requesting her presence, curious to witness a human cadet who could defeat the most advanced alien tactics. Lyra remained grounded, focusing on learning, surviving, and perfecting her skills. Recognition was secondary, results were primary. Through it all, one lesson remained clear. The galaxy might underestimate humans, but humans had something that no alien technology could replicate: their spirit. The instinct to survive, the ability to think beyond rules, and the courage to act when others hesitated. Lyra embodied all of it, and with every success, she proved that humanity was not to be dismissed. The days at Epsilon Prime stretched into weeks. The cadets around her learned to watch and respect her. Even Corin, the unyielding instructor, began to rely on her insights during simulations. The academy itself seemed to shift subtly, as if the presence of one exceptional human cadet had altered its expectations of what was possible. Yet Lyra knew the real challenge was still ahead. The simulations were only practice. The galaxy beyond Epsilon Prime was unforgiving. Real battles awaited, ones where lives were not simulated, where every decision carried the weight of survival or death. And when that time came, she would be ready. Humans were underestimated. Aliens assumed weakness. Lyra intended to prove them wrong, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. And in the cold, endless darkness of space, that resolve shone brighter than any star. The alarm blared through Epsilon Prime, a shrill, urgent sound that echoed in every corridor and control room. Lyra Vance's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the thrill that came when real danger appeared. The simulation had been only practice. Now the threat was real. Alien raiders from the Zarid Empire had breached the outer orbital defenses, their fleet cutting through the perimeter faster than the station's automated systems could respond. Corin Vex appeared on the bridge, mask still cracked from the earlier incident, his golden eyes flashing with a mix of anger and concern. Cadets and officers scrambled around consoles, trying to calculate the enemy's trajectory, predict their strategy, and respond in time. The Zarid were infamous for their ruthlessness and tactical brilliance, and they had never faced humans in a coordinated battle. Today, that would change. "Lyra Vance," Corin said sharply, "you are in command of the first response team. Your squad will engage the enemy while we reinforce the station's shields. Fail, and the consequences will be catastrophic. Understand?" Lyra nodded, her fingers gripping the control console as she accessed the tactical map. She had expected simulations, drills, and training exercises, but this was her first real battle. There was no room for error. "Understood, sir. I'll do what needs to be done." The bridge lights dimmed as the outer viewing screens displayed the Zarid fleet emerging from hyperspace. Ships the size of mountains drifted in formation, their weapons glowing ominously. Smaller fighter craft swarmed ahead, probing the station's defenses, looking for weaknesses. Lyra studied the formations, noting patterns that alien officers might overlook. Humans were unpredictable, she reminded herself, and she intended to use that unpredictability to her advantage. Her squad, a mix of humans and alien cadets, looked to her for direction. Many were tense, unsure if a human could command effectively against an enemy that had destroyed entire colonies. Lyra's calm and unwavering presence gave them confidence. She was not only leading, she was inspiring. "Move the interceptors into Formation Alpha," she instructed. "Flank from both sides and draw their fighters toward the outer decoy turrets. The main fleet will follow their lead." Her commands were precise, almost rhythmic, as though she had rehearsed them 1,000 times, yet they were entirely improvised. The cadets executed her orders flawlessly. Lyra had learned during simulations that strict adherence to protocol was often predictable. Instead, she relied on instinct, on observation, on reading patterns in real time. She watched as the Zarid fighters took the bait, swarming toward the decoy turrets. Automated defenses fired, and several ships were disabled before they could reach the station. But the Zarid were relentless. Larger ships advanced, their shields pulsating with energy, their weapons charging. The station's automated systems struggled to compensate. Lyra had anticipated this. She ordered her squad to break formation, weaving through the enemy lines, striking at weak points with precision strikes. A massive Zarid cruiser unleashed a volley of energy bolts toward the station. Lyra's interceptors darted between the beams, weaving unpredictably, their human pilot instincts allowing them to evade with impossible speed. One of the alien cadets faltered, a fighter clipped by debris. Lyra's voice cut through the comms. Adjust course, take the upper vector. Trust your instincts? The cadet obeyed, narrowly avoiding destruction. Lyra smiled briefly. This was exactly what humans excelled at, thinking beyond calculation, acting beyond prediction. The Zarid had never faced beings like this before. Meanwhile, Corin Vex monitored the battle from the bridge. Even he, seasoned in centuries of combat, found himself surprised by her strategies. Humans were small, seemingly fragile, yet in Lyra's hands they became something more, something impossible to predict, impossible to trap. His jaw tightened. He had underestimated humans for too long. Lyra's squad targeted a Zarid weapons platform, a massive structure controlling the enemy fleet's energy flow. She directed her squad to divide and strike simultaneously from multiple vectors. The platform shuddered under the unexpected assault, its operators caught off guard. Explosions rippled across the fleet, and the enemy formation wavered. But the Zarid were not so easily defeated. A sudden wave of fighter drones descended, faster and more numerous than anything she had trained against. One of her squad members was hit, their ship spiraling out of control. Lyra did not hesitate. She maneuvered through the chaos, weaving between enemy fire, reaching the pilot just in time to intercept them with a collision avoidance protocol and a skillful push from her ship's gravity thrusters. The pilot gasped in shock and relief. Lyra's mind was a whirlwind of calculations and instincts. Every decision had consequences. Every delay could mean death. Yet she remained calm, directing her squad with precision, thinking ahead multiple steps, exploiting every weakness the enemy revealed. Humans thrived in chaos, and today chaos was her battlefield. The battle escalated. The Zarid fleet concentrated on the station's shields, firing continuous volleys. Lyra noticed a pattern. Ships that broke formation were targeted less aggressively, while those that followed predictable paths were destroyed quickly. She exploited this insight, sending decoy fighters in chaotic patterns while directing her main force along unexpected trajectories. The enemy struggled to adapt. Corin Vex's voice echoed through the comm system, calm but urgent. Cadet Vance, you are holding them off longer than any simulation could anticipate. But the main cruiser is moving to flank. You will need a decisive strike, or the station will fall. Lyra's eyes scanned the holographic battlefield. She saw an opening, a narrow corridor between two asteroid clusters near the edge of the station's orbital path. The main cruiser had positioned itself with overconfidence, assuming it controlled the center of the field. Lyra calculated the trajectory, adjusting for speed, mass, and enemy response time. Form Strike Team Delta, she commanded. We go through the asteroid corridor, target the cruiser's energy core, hit it simultaneously from 3 angles. Timing is everything, move now. Her squad hesitated for only a moment, then obeyed. Lyra led the way, darting through the asteroid field with unmatched precision. Lasers and energy beams cut through the void, yet she guided her squad around each obstacle, weaving unpredictably, making it impossible for the cruiser to track them all. As they closed in, Lyra initiated the attack. 3 ships, including hers, fired in perfect synchrony at the cruiser's energy core. The blast tore through its defenses, sending shockwaves across the hull. Systems failed, shields collapsed, and the massive cruiser spiraled out of control. The remaining Zarid ships faltered, their coordination broken. Lyra's squad pressed the advantage, striking at the flanks, disabling weapons, and forcing the enemy to retreat. The station shuddered as the last energy beams struck automated defenses, but it held. Lyra exhaled slowly, her body trembling from the intensity, yet her mind remained sharp. When the battle finally ended, the observation gallery was silent, save for the hum of the station's systems. Cadets stared in disbelief. They had witnessed a human cadet, a single leader, coordinate a counterattack that had saved the station from near destruction. Corin Vex approached Lyra, his expression unreadable behind the repaired mask. "Cadet Vance," he said slowly, "you have done something extraordinary. You have not only defended the station, but you have demonstrated the full potential of human ingenuity and courage. The Zarid underestimated humans, and that mistake cost them dearly." Lyra's chest rose and fell. She did not seek praise, yet she understood its weight. She had proven what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits: adaptation, courage, and intelligence beyond any algorithm. The cadets who had doubted her now approached cautiously, their respect undeniable. Some spoke quietly, asking how she had predicted enemy movements. Others simply nodded, acknowledging that humans could be more than they appeared. Even Corin seemed to soften slightly, though he remained the same disciplined instructor. "You have changed my perception," he said. "Humans are not fragile, not predictable, and not easily broken. You have proven this beyond theory or simulation. Remember this lesson. The galaxy is vast, and the challenges ahead will test every skill, every instinct you have." Lyra nodded. She understood that this victory, though monumental, was only the beginning. Real battles lay ahead, and they would be far more dangerous than simulations or even this raid. But she had learned something crucial. Fear could not control humans. Instinct, courage, and ingenuity were stronger. That evening, as the station's lights dimmed and cadets settled into their quarters, Lyra walked through the observation corridors once more. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the windows, a vast canvas of possibility and danger. She thought of the Zarid, of their arrogance, and of the countless other threats lurking in the galaxy. Humans were underestimated. Aliens assumed they were weak, slow, and predictable. Lyra had proven them wrong. And she knew that as long as humans could act beyond expectation, no challenge would be insurmountable. Corin watched from a distance, silent for a long moment. The cadet he had once disciplined with a slap had just led the defense of an entire station. He could not ignore it. He could not unsee it. Humanity, he realized, had a spirit and cunning that even the most advanced alien strategies could not fully anticipate. Lyra paused, gazing out at the void. She was tired, her body aching from the relentless battle, but her mind was alive with possibilities. The galaxy was larger than anyone could imagine, filled with dangers, allies, and mysteries. But she knew one thing for certain. Humans, underestimated though they were, would survive. Humans would adapt. Humans would fight. And when the galaxy underestimated them again, they would remind it of their strength, their intelligence, and their indomitable spirit. The stars shimmered coldly in the void, indifferent yet beautiful. Lyra smiled faintly. She was ready for whatever came next. The Zarid raid had been only the first test, but it had shown something vital. Humans were unpredictable, unstoppable, and unbroken. And she would carry that truth into every battle yet to come. The Zarid raid had been repelled, but Epsilon Prime was far from safe. The station's shields had held, but intelligence reports warned that the Zarid Empire would not forget this humiliation. They would return, stronger, smarter, and more determined. Lyra Vance knew the reprieve was temporary. Every cadet on the station could feel the tension in the air, the quiet before a storm that had not yet arrived. Corin Vex stood on the observation deck, mask fully repaired, yet the scars along its edges still visible. He had witnessed human ingenuity in ways that no simulations could replicate. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider the possibility that humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, fighters, and thinkers beyond his calculations. But respect alone would not prepare the station for what was coming. Action would. "Cadet Vance," he said, his voice steady but carrying a weight of urgency, "we cannot predict when the Zarid will strike again. You will lead the defense team. The fleet outside will need human command as much as alien coordination. This is your final test, not a simulation." Lyra nodded. She felt the tension in the bridge, the energy that came when real stakes were at hand. Simulations had tested her mind. The previous raid had tested her skill. Now everything, life, station, and survival, was on the line. She would not fail, not now, not ever. The station's sensors flared. Zarid ships emerged from hyperspace, their numbers overwhelming, their formations tighter and more calculated than before. Lyra's pulse quickened, not with fear but with anticipation. The enemy assumed the humans were still fragile. They assumed predictability. They assumed mistakes. They were wrong. Lyra quickly assessed the battlefield. Zarid dreadnoughts formed the central axis, while swarms of fighter drones moved ahead in precise arcs, ready to overwhelm the station's defenses. Automated turrets were online, but they could not handle the combined pressure of fleet and swarms without human guidance. She accessed the tactical overlay and began issuing orders. "Form Alpha," she said, directing the fastest interceptors to flank the fighter swarms. "Strike Team Beta, take the upper vector through Asteroid Field 7. Use debris for cover and hit the cruiser's shields. Strike Team Gamma, prepare boarding drones for the lead dreadnought. Timing will be crucial." Her squad hesitated only a moment, then moved as one. Every cadet trusted her instinct because it had proven correct before. Lyra led them with confidence, weaving through incoming fire with a skill that bordered on preternatural. Her human mind worked faster than any alien algorithm, calculating trajectories, predicting enemy responses, and exploiting every gap the Zarid left exposed. The first wave of drones collided with Lyra's flanking interceptors. They darted, spun, and split apart in chaotic patterns, evading fire that would have destroyed less adaptable pilots. Lyra shouted orders over the comms, adjusting maneuvers, repositioning units, and guiding them through the storm. Corin Vex observed from above. Even he could not predict her decisions fully. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but this cadet had elevated unpredictability to a weapon. Every move she made created opportunities no alien strategy could anticipate. The battle raged for hours. Zarid dreadnoughts fired volleys of plasma that lit up the void with deadly brilliance. The station shuddered under the force, but Lyra's tactics mitigated the damage. She used decoy drones to draw fire while guiding the main squad to critical systems. Shields held. Weapon systems remained functional. Lives were saved. Then, the lead dreadnought shifted course, aiming directly for the station's power core. Automated defenses targeted it, but human reflex and instinct were needed to execute the precise maneuvers required. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She saw a path, narrow and impossible by traditional calculations, but survivable with the right timing and courage. "Strike Team Gamma, initiate boarding protocol," she commanded. "We go in through the maintenance hatch on the port side. Focus on the energy core and disable the main weapons. Move fast, move precise, and trust your instincts." The boarding drones zipped toward the dreadnought, carrying small teams of humans and allies. Lyra guided them, adjusting flight paths, predicting enemy countermeasures, and calculating timing down to milliseconds. The human pilot's instincts allowed them to dodge fire that no alien algorithm could foresee. Inside the dreadnought, chaos erupted. Zarid soldiers responded with lethal precision, but humans adapted faster. Lyra's team split, flanking and striking simultaneously at critical nodes. Energy conduits were overloaded in a controlled way, shields collapsed, and weapon systems went offline. The dreadnought shuddered and spiraled out of control, drifting helplessly toward the void. Outside, the fleet faltered. Lyra's strategies had disrupted their formation, leaving them vulnerable to coordinated strikes from Epsilon Prime's defenses. One by one, the dreadnoughts fell, their energy cores disabled or destroyed. The Zarid assumed humans would act like predictable opponents. They were wrong. Every strike, every decision revealed the full scope of human ingenuity. Corin Vex finally spoke through the comms, his voice a mixture of awe and respect. "Cadet Vance, your actions have saved the station. You have demonstrated strategy, courage, and leadership beyond any human or alien expectation." The Zarid fleet underestimated humans, and that cost them their victory. Lyra exhaled slowly, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She did not smile. Victory was not a reason for pride, it was a responsibility. She had proven humans were capable, yes, but the galaxy was vast, and threats were endless. She needed to remain sharp, adaptable, and relentless. Cadets approached her, some cheering quietly, others simply nodding in admiration. They had witnessed history, the moment when a human cadet led the defense of an entire station against a superior alien fleet. Lyra's mind, however, was already moving forward. She knew that each victory was temporary unless humans continued to innovate and defy expectation. As the Zarid ships retreated into hyperspace, leaving behind the debris of their failed attack, Lyra felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Corin Vex approached her on the observation deck. The cracks in his mask were still visible, a reminder of the incident that had set all of this in motion. "You have done more than I could have imagined," he said quietly. "Not just today, but since the moment you challenged me. Humans are remarkable. You are remarkable. You have proven that courage, ingenuity, and unpredictability can overcome even the most advanced strategies in the galaxy." Lyra nodded, her voice steady. "We survive because we adapt. We survive because we think beyond the rules. That is how humans endure, even in the harshest conditions. We do not rely on strength alone or on technology alone. We rely on each other, on our instincts, and on our will to survive." Corin regarded her silently for a long moment. Then he nodded, almost imperceptibly. "I underestimated you. he admitted. "I underestimated humanity. I will not make that mistake again." Lyra felt a strange satisfaction, not from his words, but from the truth of their meaning. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries. They assumed fragility, predictability, and obedience, but Lyra had shown them the opposite. Humans were resilient, clever, and daring. In the days that followed, Epsilon Prime began to prepare for the inevitable return of the Zarid. Lyra worked alongside Corin and other instructors to train cadets, combining human intuition with alien technology. Her methods were unconventional, often startling to traditional instructors, but their effectiveness was undeniable. Humans learned to act unpredictably, to improvise, and to exploit weaknesses in ways no simulation could teach. The academy itself seemed to change subtly. Human cadets were no longer dismissed as fragile or inexperienced. They were respected, observed, and studied. Lyra's example inspired not just humans, but allied alien cadets as well. They saw that ingenuity and courage could outweigh size, strength, or advanced technology. Lyra spent nights walking the observation corridors, gazing at the endless void beyond the station's windows. Stars stretched in infinite patterns, cold and distant, yet filled with possibilities and dangers. She knew the galaxy would test humanity repeatedly. She knew the Zarid would return, stronger and smarter. But she also knew that humans were prepared to defy expectation, to act beyond prediction, and to survive against impossible odds. One evening, Corin approached her quietly. "You have changed something here," he said. "Not just in your actions, but in the minds of every cadet who witnessed it. Humans are not fragile. Humans are not predictable. Humans can be a force the galaxy must respect." Lyra smiled faintly, bruised from the battles, yet unbroken. "We survive," she said simply. "That is what humans do. We adapt, we fight, and we endure. That is all anyone needs to know." The next threat would come, of that she was certain. The Zarid Empire would not forgive this humiliation. But humans would be ready. Humans would act when others hesitated. Humans would surprise, endure, and triumph. And when the galaxy underestimated them again, it would learn a lesson it could not ignore. The station lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the corridors. Lyra stood at the observation window, watching distant fleets move silently through the void. She thought of Earth, of the outer colonies, of humanity's long history of survival against impossible odds. She thought of the cadets she had led, of Corin's grudging respect, and of the future battles yet to come. Humans were underestimated. Aliens assumed weakness, but humans were not weak. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were unstoppable. And Lyra Vance, standing at the forefront of a species awakening, embodied that truth in every decision, every maneuver, and every heartbeat. The stars beyond the station seemed to shimmer in acknowledgement. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's defiance. The galaxy had seen their ingenuity, courage, and indomitable spirit. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again.